Okay, so today we're going to be talking about history. So, do you like learning about history?
Definitely. So it was my favourite subject at school. Absolutely loved it. And I followed it all the way through to A-levels, and then I went on to university. I studied historical linguistics, so the history of languages. And even now, I think it's one of those subjects that you just keep learning throughout your life. I read many books about it, and even from novels you can pick up a lot of kind of historical context. Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating.
I agree. I studied English literature at university, and I think that incorporates a lot of history. So I did really enjoy it. But to be honest, I did find it really hard remembering all of the dates.
Yes, I struggled with that as well. When I was at school, I didn't really like history all that much, mainly because I struggled remembering the dates and the names. But now I'm older, I do quite like learning what happened in the past, even way back as ancient Rome or ancient Egypt. I find it more interesting learning about history now than I did when I was at school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which periods of history did you find most interesting, Ruby?
I'd say the Roman era. Definitely the Roman Empire was fascinating for me, and the history of the Mediterranean Sea. I'd recently read a book about that, so that's great. And also kind of America and American history, early American history and modern, everything that's happened in the past 100 years, definitely. What about you, Amy?
Interesting, yeah, I'm similar. I studied a lot of modernism and post-1900s, so...
Okay,
Yeah.
quite different to the Roman era.
Yeah, I'm like you. I quite enjoyed learning about ancient Rome. For me, it was more their day-to-day lives, how they conducted themselves, and how their daily lifestyles differed from my lifestyles. And I found that absolutely fascinating. I loved learning about what they would do every day.
It's not so much the kings and queens and the rulers, it's kind of everyday people, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What about interesting historical sites in the UK?
A few years ago, I went to Warwick Castle.
Ah.
And that was really interesting. It's a beautiful location for starters, but they also do reenactments, and you see people walking around dressed up in medieval type clothes, and it's really interesting. You learn about the castle, and it's also a really fun day out as well. I would definitely recommend visiting Warwick Castle.
I went to Stonehenge earlier this year, which I found really interesting.
Brilliant.
I think it's really important to visit the actual historical monuments to you.
Oh, definitely. I walked along Hadrian's Wall, which is it's a big wall that separates England from Scotland, sort of. And it was built by the Roman Emperor Hadrian as a kind of defence against the tribes in Scotland many, many years ago. And you can actually walk across England along that. It's beautiful. Lots of films are set there, and it's stunning scenery. But actually being there and seeing it in person was just absolutely amazing. And Stonehenge as well.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Definitely.
great
So what
to
do you think
see.
the benefits of visiting the historical monuments are in person?
I think it brings history to life, because it's one thing reading about Stonehenge in a book or seeing it on TV, in a film, in a documentary. But personally, when you see it, you can't touch Stonehenge anymore. There's a fence there. But if you were naughty and you touch the monuments, it brings it to life, really, and just makes it so much more interesting. So yeah, I think it's really important to be able to see them.
Yeah, I went to Rome last year, and just the whole city is this incredible museum. You walk down the street and you see what people would have seen, and you smell it and you can taste it. Not taste it, that's the wrong one. But it's this incredibly immersive experience. It's brilliant, yeah.
And similarly, I went to Pompeii a few years back, and you can see where the wheels used to run along the roads, little things like that. Yeah. It brings it to life. I absolutely love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so do you think that all of these sites are absolutely amazing, but who should be responsible for maintaining them? Do you think it's the government, or is it kind of local charities?
I think it's both. I think it is important that the government pay for these things because it's so important to educate everyone on the history of your country or other countries when you're visiting, to keep history alive and documented. So I think it's really important that governments would pay for it.
Yes, I think also there are some trusts set up as well that help with the payments. So when you go to, if you go to visit a castle and you're paying your entrance fees, you're helping pay for the maintenance of that monument, of that castle. So they can get funding from that avenue as well. So the government doesn't just have to fund it itself. So I think it's important for more than one source of income for the maintenance.
I guess donations aren't quite as reliable as those, so
Yeah.
it's helpful for them to have a steady stream of income from the government. And like you say, it's an investment in our kind of our shared history.
Yes.
I think I agree with you. I think that the government should be more they should have responsibility to pay for these things because I think everyone should be able to access these monuments, so shouldn't necessarily have to pay for the entrance of them.
I do agree there. I do. Entrance fees are so high. Part of me does resent having to pay quite so much to go see them.
But at the same time, you can see why.
Yes,
they
I
charge.
completely understand why. Because not only have you got to maintain the monument, you've got to pay the people
Yeah.
who were just working there, selling the tickets, cleaning the place. Everything's got to be paid for.
You can't rely on volunteers, can you?
No, not always.
Okay. So, how do you think history will be taught in schools in the future?
Well, I think there'll be more reliance on digital learning, whether that's just through smart boards or watching videos. I think it's actually quite difficult to say because a lot of material can't really be converted to digital and can't be presented digitally. But maybe the way it's taught could be more digital.
Yeah.
I'd agree
Rather than
with
just
that.
someone standing out here, just go to page 6 of the coursebook. More presentations to engage students a bit more.
I'd hope that also that there would be more interactive school visits as well to going to all of these historical sites.
So you go to the places you can afford to go to or that it's logistically possible to go. So if you're in the UK, you could go to Stonehenge. I went to Stonehenge as a child. But Machu Picchu, you can't afford to go there.
No.
So I think virtual reality is really going to help expand the world for our students. And it's not the same as actually being there and having history come to life in front of you, but it's still this incredibly immersive, wonderful way to see the world. And I think if you can make stuff 3D, if you can make it real, that will kind of offer that engagement factor that a lot of people, perhaps you as well, didn't feel at school.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the virtual reality would be a huge, huge benefit for students now because they could essentially walk the streets
Of Pompeii.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And see what Pompeians would have seen thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
So it'd be a much more immersive experience for them. And just be more interesting and they'd remember it.
So do you think that'd be a way that they could make history more interesting in schools?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. If schools were able to do that, if they had the budgets to provide that learning experience.
Absolutely.